Hello everyone, my name is Rob, welcome to Kinetic Rugby League. In this video I'm going to be giving you my Super League Round 3 power rankings. Now there were no changes last week, but we certainly have a good handful this week, so we'll just crack on with 12th place. Unfortunately, still in 12th place, I'm going to have to put the London Broncos. I really wanted to put them at 11, I really did, but 12th for now. However, the gap to the team that I'll be putting 11th isn't a huge gap. I expected them to get battered this week. Even though it was against Hull FC, I expected them to get battered. Simple as that. I didn't think they could compete with anybody. I thought maybe they could put up a few more tries, maybe restrict the number of points against worse opponents, but not make it that close. Maybe they'd get into double digits for points scored. Maybe they'd get less than 20 points conceded. That kind of thing. Or get to mid-20s maybe. But what an effort this week. What a major effort from the London Broncos. They're fighting for pride week in, week out. We know the situation regards promotion and relegation. That it doesn't matter how well it goes for them this year, it's just not going to be enough. So they should be extremely proud of that. London Broncos fans will be immensely proud of it. As a non-Broncos fan, I'm proud of them for that kind of effort. And it wasn't freak moments. It was well orchestrated, well executed moments, which is the most important thing for that team. It's not just getting a few random fortunate tries here and there where it's like, you know, there was an interception in there, but not just being gifted tries like that. Obviously, you need to time things well for interceptions, and that can be, you know, a skill-based thing because you have to judge them, but they're not just gimmies. They were well worked, they earned that, and did actually concede less points than they have done previously. So brilliant turnaround from the first 2 weeks, having to compete, as I sort of mentioned as well, competing against Saints and then Catalans, getting used to the pace of the game sooner, and having that result in round 3 is just fantastic. Broncos in 12th, but my God, if they can take an even bigger step, get that win, they could climb up this ladder at some point. But London Broncos in 12th. In 11th place, you lucky sons of guns, Hull FC. The only reason, which is completely logical and makes absolute sense saying it, but the only reason why they are still above London right now is because they beat them. But the fact that it was as close as they was means that they need to move down one. They played against a team that have been battered, what was it, 44? Something like that, and then 36-0. Or 34-0. For it to be that close, and to allow the Broncos to outplay you as many times as they did, to let in that many number of points, I expected them to score as many as they did, so that's obviously a positive. But to concede that many, to have it come down to a moment towards the very end of the game from Morgan Smith is unacceptable. Like, if you want to compete for a playoff spot, you just can't have that. So yeah, moving down one, the first time a team has moved in these power rankings is the mighty Hull FC. Hull FC fans aren't going to be happy about it, of course. You know, the performances, I mean. They probably don't care about my opinion, so that's fine. But I don't know what else Hull FC can do. I think they've got a great coach in Tony Smith. They've got a decent squad. But they're obviously missing Jake Clifford. For me, Farmanu Brown is a number 9. So could they go and poach somebody else? I don't know, maybe. But there are some serious problems at Hull FC. I don't think they're really going to be competing that closely with London Broncos by the end of the season for last place. but I don't see them picking up too many wins as of right now. So 11th at the moment feels about right for Hull FC. Moving on to 10th place now, and +1 this week are the Castleford Tigers. I was at the game, and I've got to say, not a bad effort, especially in attack. Defensively wasn't great because the number of points they conceded, but I know they didn't score many points. I'm well aware of that, but visually in attack wasn't too bad. It really wasn't too bad. What I liked about the performance was they weren't afraid to go at Warrington early in the tackle count and close to their own try line in both halves. And that was something that really caught Warrington by surprise, and they looked effective. The only negative, or well, there's more than one, but one of the negatives was when you usually have the runner that makes the run round the back, they normally receive the ball from the standoff or the scrum half, and it's up to them to make that final choice. Some of those final choices weren't clinical enough, but in terms of how they were able to kind of spread Warrington a little bit defensively and make them look vulnerable in areas, outnumbering them on some sides, they really created some decent looking opportunities. It's just how they just didn't finish. And I know that that's important, but they at least made Warrington worry defensively at times. So that is something that they've got to work on, that decision making for the final pass. But just the confidence and the ability to go at Warrington early in the count, close to their own try line, be effective, create opportunities, were also pretty solid through the middle. I don't think they won the forward battle, but they had plenty of moments where they were really pushing Warrington back and made some really good field position. In terms of discipline, I don't recall Castleford being that bad when it came to discipline, so that's at least a positive there. Normally I'll remember if a team was really poor with discipline, but Castleford seemed fine, and yeah, defensively wasn't great, conceded way too many points, but in terms of how they looked, the eye test says to me that they just had a bit more than Hull FC when it was 13-13, as a reference anyway. But 10th place, moving up one, Castleford Tigers. Taking the 9th spot and moving down 2 places, it's going to be the Huddersfield Giants. I don't think, even with the number of points they put up against the Wigan Warriors, I don't think I can really justify even putting them 8th or keeping them 7th. I really can't, especially after this week. You know, it was as far as performances go in round 1, it was fine. Round 2 was completely and utterly abysmal. Round 3 was still, I mean, compared to who they're playing against, I guess you could say it was okay score-wise, but if you add context into it and nuance, one of the tries they scored was a little bit of a chaotic moment. It wasn't exactly clinical, and it wasn't made by them. It was more of a mistake or a bit of a chaotic moment, basically. So that takes away from the performance of the Giants. So you can remove 6 points from them for that. The pass that Clune made for their first try down that right-hand side was a beauty. An absolute beauty. That's the kind of stuff that I want to keep seeing from him. That's what I expect him to bring to this Giants team. Not just that, but it's one of the key things, making those perfectly placed clinical passes. Huddersfield definitely have a really strong squad, but the reason why they're down in 9th now is, even though, and the same with the Broncos, they played 2 difficult teams very early on. The Giants have played 2 very difficult teams early on, but at least one of those performances, for what you expect from this Huddersfield team, is just unacceptable. And even against Wigan, you could say yes, was better than the week before, but is still unacceptable. Unacceptable, especially given the squad that they've got. So you can't really apply the same sort of level of excuse that the Broncos had. The Giants right now, I think, could beat the Tigers, Hull FC, and the Broncos, but would then really have a challenge against the next team and the team after that. So, yeah, I'm going to have to put Huddersfield in 9th. Maybe with a decent performance next week, they could move back up 1 or maybe 2. It just depends on how it goes. But for me, I could only see them beating the teams mentioned so far. So, 9th place, Huddersfield Giants. Taking a look at 8th place and moving up 1 are the Warrington Wolves. Much better performance this week. And the most important thing is it was 13 on 13. That's one thing that I really wanted to see. And that would be a good reference. I think given that the fact that Castleford's performance looks stronger than Hull FC's performance, and Warrington's performance was also a step up against Hull FC, shows their improvement and gives me enough cause to move them up 1. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does. It makes sense in my little brain, but the performance was a lot more clinical. Defensively, there were some gaps here and there. Some dodgy moments from Thulis defensively, which allowed one of the tries. But much more clinical in attack. Looked like there was a little bit more depth. There was still some shaky moments. Wasn't perfect. Still a little bit one-dimensional. But you had Leon Hayes was a brick wall defensively, being like 5'4", maybe 5. He's only short, but he's a brick wall. I think in terms of individual performances, Harrison had a much better game. Walker looked in control. Matty Ashton, not even including the tries he scored, just on an individual performance, excluding the tries, had a great game. Who else am I missing? I know I'm missing someone. Matt Duffy had one of, if not his best game in a wire shirt. He was absolutely excellent. Aside from one moment where there was a miscommunication, he's already done that in round 1 with him and Lindup. But there was another miscommunication this week that was, obviously a negative, and he was dragged out of play late on into the second half. Not entirely his fault, he was kind of put in an awkward spot, but still maybe he could have done something different. Other than that, was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But for me, one of the biggest changes, and a lot of Wire fans were talking about this last year, Ben Curry at loose forward is a perfect match. For his size and his play style, it is a perfect fit. I'm going to go on a slight ramble here, but if, say for example, you were to ask me what position in rugby league do you think you could just get rid of and it wouldn't have that much of an impact, I would have said loose forward. But when you think about it, when you kind of have a loose forward that's like just there, you don't really see them too much because they'll put in a strong defensive shift. They'll get a lot of tackles towards their stats because they naturally do because of where they're positioned. But there's not really too much else. It's just they'll put in the tackles, but there's not really much else that comes with it. But when you've got a quality loose forward, you can tell. Like in the NRL, the Panthers have Yo and the Broncos have Carrigan. The Rabbitohs have Murray. When you have a good loose forward, you can absolutely tell. They are like the honorary 5th member of the spine if they are technically brilliant. And Ben Curry's style fits there perfectly. I mean, I think that was the plan for Matty Nicholson, but Ben Curry just fits that. He gets stuck in defensively, as they normally do, but didn't really put a foot wrong defensively. It just allows the attack to flow from left to right and right to left. It just fits. It just fits. I hope he stays there. He's doing a fantastic job. But yeah, overall, much better performance from Warrington in attack, in defence, and from individuals really stepping up this week. Warrington Wolves, 8th place, move up 1. Taking the number 7 spot and also moving up 1 is going to be the Leigh Leopards. I think, given the fact that, some people might say, well, it was only a few weeks ago that they lost to the Giants. You've got to look at their situation now, because it can change drastically week to week. They don't have Ipape. They lost Asiata via sin bin and then injury. They are going to be without Tom Briscoe, possibly. I don't know. I've not seen exactly how long he's going to be out for, but it didn't look good. It could be like a week or two, but it didn't look good. They also had 2 sin bins. One was like with about 4.5 minutes to go. So they were a man down for 14.5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. And also lost out on some key players and haven't had Ipape. And also Brad Dwyer's a new player that's come in. So, given that they didn't actually concede a point whilst they were a man down is a huge positive defensively. And to limit St. Helens to only that many points is a huge win defensively. To only put up 4 points isn't great, obviously. But I think it all comes down to the defensive resilience for me is a big reason to give them that step up. And I think they'll still be dangerous in attack. They have been less than fine. Let's go with less than fine. But I still think right now they would just be a little bit too good, as of right now, than the teams below them at the moment, in these power rankings anyway. There is maybe a shout to put Warrington ahead of them, and maybe the gap to Huddersfield is a lot closer, given, as I said, they only played very recently, and it was Huddersfield that took the win there. There's still work to be done for Leigh, so I will admit this may be the only decision that I'm questioning myself on, because Leigh could maybe be 9th or 8th. But I think it's just what they're going through right now and how they dealt with that performance against such a strong Saints team, just making me put them in 7th right now. But I am questioning it, I won't lie. So there's not much else that I can really say on that. So Leigh Leopards in 7th, but as I said, it is questionable. Taking a look at number 6 in my power rankings is going to be the Salford Red Devils, staying exactly where they are. There is definitely a gap from them to 7th, a recognisable gap. A great way to bounce back after a little bit of a rocky game against Castleford. I don't think it justifies putting them ahead of who I've got in 5th just yet, but a really strong performance against a really solid opponent in Kingston Rovers. They looked clinical, and of course Mark Sneed, being the very reliable kicker he is, took the penalty kicks where he could, and that helps extend them. Also getting the drop goal was important just to maintain that gap. But mentally that can really drain teams where it's only a point, but the fact that it makes a team have to score twice is just could be mentally draining. So Salford, big step up, looking a lot better defensively to kind of limit Hull KR, given how free-flowing they've been in attack so far this season as well. To limit them to that number of points is an excellent job. It's a truly excellent job. And to look how they did in attack, it wasn't anything like spectacular, but it was just really precise, really clinical, playing to their strengths of the short kicking game, playing down the short sides, putting Hull KR under pressure in those corners. Just a really, really stand-up job from Salford there. Salford fans will be really happy with that one. Brings them a little bit more to the forefront of safer playoff teams. So, maybe last week was a slight dip. Definitely not a bad performance by any means, but a slight dip. But this is the kind of Salford I was expecting, that they could really challenge the teams that I've got near the top. And this was one of those weeks. So, Salford Red Devils, non-movers at number 6. Taking 5th place in my power rankings, moving down 1, is going to be the Catalans Dragons. Simply put, they lost to the team that was below them in the power rankings last week, which was Leeds. Simple as that. They lost to them. One thing that you could say is that they conceded a try whilst being a man down. I think it was just the one that they conceded. But other than that, take that out of the equation, they still lost 13-13. So that's one way of putting it into context, looking at the nuance of it. I don't think it was... There isn't really too much I can say on this other than defensively wasn't terrible because they didn't concede a ridiculous number of points. In attack, it wasn't terrible because they didn't score 0. It was just, for me, simply put, it was one of those games where they came up against a team that I knew would be a tough battle. I had Catalans winning by 4. So I knew it was going to be a close game. Leeds were just more clinical. Simple as that. So it's not any reason to drop them below Salford. Definitely don't drop below Leigh. But there's no reason to put them down to 6th. I think they're still going to be one of the strongest teams in the league defensively and in attack. They're going to have their rough moments because they've got new players in the spine. There's still things to get used to. But yeah, simply put, I can't have Catalans above Leeds. So as much as this isn't exactly a very technical analysis of Catalans this week, simply put, I can't have them above the team that they just lost to. Simple as that. Catalans Dragons down 1 in 5th. Moving on to 4th place now, and moving up 1 are the Leeds Rhinos. Basically the same as what I said regarding the Dragons, that they beat them fair and square. Yes, there was a moment that they were, they were up a player, but they still capitalised. They scored a great try off the back of, the moment that they had when they were a man up. Beautiful try. The first one was a little bit questionable. I do think he probably did have possession of it based on where his hand was underneath the ball. Questionable-ish, but fine. And then the second one, I didn't fully see the ball put down. I probably need to watch it again, to be honest. But yeah, wasn't perfect by any means. It was always going to be a tough contest. But I think the fact that, because I was expecting them to lose by 4, and it was basically a 12-point swing to win by 8, is a real positive reason to move Leeds up. And part of the reason why I had them losing to Catalans was because of previous performances so far. I think Catalans still felt like they were the better team, like they'd be slightly more clinical in attack and in defence. I knew Leeds could absolutely compete in this game. But the good thing is, we're seeing these pretty consistent performances. They probably, they weren't perfect against Salford, but it was decent. They came up against a strong Hull KR team, and they were decent. They came up against Catalans Dragons, who were always strong defensively, and they were decent. They've been consistently decent, if not good, to working their way to great. They're not great, but they're putting in decent to good performances. If they keep that consistency, they find Hull KR on an off day, Saints on an off day, Wigan on an off day, they can absolutely challenge for 2 points against those teams. So Leeds right now, they're not top 3. They aren't. But as long as they keep that consistency, they are absolutely a playoff team. Again, still early days, only round 3, but all I can go off of the 3 games. And as of right now, they are the 4th best team for me. Moving on to 3rd place, and still in 3rd place, going to be the Hull Kingston Rovers. I don't think the performance against Salford is anything to worry about. Teams will have their off moments. I still think they're going to be better than Leeds and Catalans and Salford again if they were to play again. There were moments where they were a man up, they were a man down. Were they a man down twice? It's possible. I don't know. I don't think they fully were, but they conceded a try when they were a man up, but also scored a try themselves when they were a man down. So it shows the kind of the effectiveness and the strike power that they do have with the ball. So it wasn't perfect. They will have down weeks, and there's not really too much else I can say on it. I think individually there have been some shaky moments. Some people have stepped up also, but Hull right now not good enough to basically be top 2. I think everyone would agree with that one. But until there's a potential other shaky performance, maybe against a team that they probably should beat, and, you know, if Leeds put in a really strong shift against a team that maybe would question their chances, i.e. Saints and Wigan, the perfect barometer would be Leeds versus Hull Kingston Rovers, simple as that. But Hull, again, I know it's not incredible technical analysis. I understand that. I'm well aware of it. I'm not John Wilkin. But Hull KR don't feel like a top 2 team. But after that, it doesn't feel terrible enough to drop them any lower than 3rd place. So, still in 3rd place, Hull Kingston Rovers. Moving on to 2nd place, and still in 2nd place is going to be St Helens. The biggest concern for me, and it's not really a concern. It isn't a concern. I don't know why I said concern 3 times now. But the only reason why I don't think they really closed the gap to 1st place this week is because, as I referenced for my section about the Leopards, they were up a man for 15 minutes and didn't score in that time. And including, now, in my bet, I had Saints winning by 12.5 points. So they were one of the teams to fail the bet. Hull FC was also a team to fail the bet, actually, because I had them to win by 10.5 points. And Hull KR as well let me down. But it's also the fact that they were a man up in those last 4.5 minutes when they were right in front of the try line. In those few minutes, didn't capitalise on it when they really should have done. They're a man up, and you're in excellent field position, and you don't capitalise off that. And early on in the game, you can really set the tone that can really drag out the gap from Leigh for that entire game. And to only win 12-4 against a team that you should be a lot fitter than. That's one thing I mentioned in my predictions video, that given that Saints have played one more game, I don't think fatigue's going to be an issue. I think, well, fatigue on the side of Saints. I think fitness would just be a lot better on the side of Saints, and that would wear Leigh down. So maybe you can add that as a positive for Leigh. But yeah, the only reason why Saints haven't closed the gap to 1st in these power rankings is that they probably should have scored more against a team that would be lacking in fitness compared to them. But defensively, excellent job to only concede 4 points. You know, you've got to give them credit for that. They're still a strong team. They will wipe the floor with a lot of teams this season. They will nil some teams. They will put up high 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s or 60s at some point, maybe against London later in the year, or Hull FC when they go to 12th, maybe. But yeah, Saints will be fine. It's not even an off week. It's really not. It's just not quite what I expected. And that's it. But Saints, non-movers in 2nd. Taking the number 1 spot for the 3rd week running, the Wigan Warriors. There isn't too much I can say on this one. And basically, as I said when I talked about the Huddersfield Giants, that, you know, you take off 6 points because one of those tries was kind of, you know, it was all over the place. You could say that that's a negative towards Wigan for not defending properly. You could absolutely say that. But when I looked at their tries, they were so quick and precise. Like, they were, like, the passes made across the line, they were done so quickly and precisely. It is so impressive. And they've got individuals that can create moments from nothing, but their teamwork is just beautiful. And defensively, again, you take off that, you know, the chaotic moment, they only concede, 10 points. But in attack, they are so, again, I'll say it again, precise. That is the thing that I really like about this Wigan team. They're always quick. They're always efficient. They always drag teams back through the middle. But the precision of passes to time things so perfectly on the edges just sets them apart right now. And I still cannot wait to see them play against Saints. But this Wigan team may need a couple key injuries in order to, or suspensions in order to bring them down a peg, and that is not me hoping that they get injuries. I really don't. I don't want to see that. Suspensions probably better, because at least then it's justified that a player isn't there. But yeah, they are a class act right now, and it's going to take some beating to catch up to them. Saints need a little bit more, but Wigan right now are brilliant. Simple as that. So that is going to be it for my Super League power rankings after round 3. If you have your own power rankings, do let me know in the comments down below. If you think maybe some of these decisions or placements were unfair, let me know. Is there anything you think that I've missed that I could have included in some of the analysis for some of these teams? And, you know, maybe things I need to reconsider for next week's video. Also let me know. But that is going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.